Welcome back to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with San Diego businesses and the key people that are working hard to make a difference in our community. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. Okay, we're back, and we have the privilege of interviewing Jamie Dent, Point Loma Electric. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Point Loma Electric and what's your business all about and what's your focus?
Well, thanks, Barry. We are electrical contractors, and our area of expertise is service and repair and upgrades, primarily for older homes. We work mostly with homeowners, a little bit with businesses, but we specialize in working in properties that are built before 1980, and we work in finished homes where people are already living there, not necessarily something that's being built from the ground up.
So if I was building a new home, you're not who I'd call. We're there to talk to you about working with existing homes. Yeah.
When it comes to the new home construction, that's an area where any electrician can do it. That what we focus on is a little bit more complicated and requires a higher level of expertise.
Why is that? What makes it more complicated and require a higher level of expertise?
Well, when you're working with open walls, it's called dingbatting. They just run along and put the wires in and everything is open and you can just run the wires.
Why is it called dingbatting? Because we think of a dingbat, somebody who doesn't have a brain. You got to be smart to be a good electrician.
Yeah. That is true, but new home construction is where most electricians cut their teeth, and it's a term I learned from my husband, so I'm not really sure.
Well, we know you're not a dingbat because you don't typically own a company and be a dingbat. So.
Well, with the older houses, you ask why they have to have more expertise. It's because you cannot see what's going on with the wiring. It's hidden behind the walls. And with a house that's been around for a long time, many hands have often touched it. So you've got homeowners who like to do their own electrical work, or you've got electricians of all different levels of qualification who may have through the years come in and done different things. And it's troubleshooting behind walls is a real art form, and it's a skill that most new guys don't have.
You told us a little bit before the show about the difference on how your employees are trained versus the normal. And when they go in, they take a lot different care. Tell us a little bit about how your employees work.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're trained so much differently, but when we hire people, we screen them really carefully. We only hire licensed certified electricians. They have to have a minimum of 5 years of experience. That's after they become certified. And for those who aren't familiar with the trade of electrical work, they're very educated. An electrician has to go to school for 4 years and work at the same time, and then they have to have a minimum of 8,000 hours of real-time experience before they're even qualified to sit and take the test. And after that, they're still considered green. And we don't hire them until they've been certified for a good 5 years. We have a couple of younger guys, but they're super smart.
Wow, this is worse than going to become a doctor.
I always like to say that our electricians are as educated as most attorneys.
Yeah,
and
not more.
They have to have experience. A lot of diagnostic work and troubleshooting is something that you learn from experience and from seeing all the different things that have happened.
So, and one of the things that I heard before the show was, when you see a typical contractor go in, they behind a wall, they rip the walls out, and your people are trained to fish through little holes and that kind of thing too?
That's the thing that we make a big deal about. Most construction electricians are trained when they make a hole in the wall to take their hammer out and just kind of bash it open. Most people in their finished houses don't really want somebody coming and knocking a hole in their wall with a hammer. Or what other things that they'll do is they'll take a sawzall out and cut a big trough all across the wall so that the wall is open, they can run the wires. It's the quickest and easiest way to do things. Our customers typically don't really want big holes cut in their walls. So
imagine that.
Can you imagine? Especially if it's custom paint or we work in old houses that are lath and plaster walls require special care.
Sure.
So we like to teach our guys, if they're not already trained, to cut little holes about the size of a quarter maybe, and they go up in the attic and they crawl under the house, and they have special tools that they use to fish the wires down behind the walls. So it's much easier to patch a lot of small little holes than this to patch a big hole in the wall. You can always see those.
That's great. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea Kay and Al Arias, and our guest, Jamie Dent from Point Loma Electric. So how long has Point Loma Electric been doing this?
Well, Point Loma Electric has been in business since 1988. It was started by my husband, Jim Dent. He's been an electrician for 43 years now. And he started Point Loma Electric out of his house in 1988. Wow. And up until recent years, he wouldn't even go north of the 56.
He was like, this is my little playground and I ain't moving out of it.
I met a neighbor in La Jolla who said, I called your company a few years ago and you wouldn't even come to my house. Oh. I was cringing in my seat. Now we cover all of San Diego County.
So you got involved and expanded the geography. That's what I get?
I did. I got involved. I built the website. So we started answering the phone. We added a couple of trucks. We added a couple more guys. We joined
the
best
website
practices.
is cool.
Thank you.
You built that. Wow.
I did not. I built the original one. It's been through a few iterations, but I wrote most of the content and had a lot of input into what's in there. We try to put a lot of information on there so homeowners can go and find out, what does this mean? Why is there smoke coming out of my outlet? Is that something I should be worried about? What do I do with my breaker trips? We want to try to provide some useful information for people.
So if somebody's just recently bought an older home, and a lot of people think of San Diego as being such a new town, and it is with a lot of new developments, but there's a lot of older homes here. So let's say somebody just bought an older home, which means that a lot of people have lived there. Like you said, a lot of hands have touched it. Do you recommend that maybe somebody call and have a check done to make sure that, things are good and safe?
We do. When you buy a house, home inspectors come and they look at certain things. And when it comes to the electrical, they're trained only to look for certain types of problems. So we get a lot of people send us home inspections, and all of them say the same thing. Uncover junction boxes, have a licensed electrician check it. They look for certain obvious things, and sometimes they miss really important safety issues that they don't know about because they're looking at the plumbing, the foundation, the roof, and the electrical. Electrical panels have a lifespan of 25 to 35 years, and most people aren't aware of that. We see them 40, 50 years old, and sometimes they're in good condition, but they do have a finite life.
So how old is an old house?
That's a great question. An old house for us is anything built before 1980 because a lot of the rules change. So we don't have 200-year-old houses here, but we have a lot of houses built in the 50s and 60s and 70s. Houses had aluminum wiring. Most of the houses that were built in the 1950s, we do a lot of houses at the turn of the century in the 1920s, but many of those have been upgraded through the years. Houses built in the 50s, what appliances did you have? A couple of lights, maybe, I don't know, did they have vacuum cleaners then? They didn't have hair dryers. They didn't have microwaves. They didn't have LCD TVs.
Yeah, they didn't have big plasma
the
TVs. The Hoovers.
They might have a couple of circuits for the whole entire house. So now we have all of these electrical appliances, and people start plugging extension cords into their outlets, and they put those strips in, and they have no awareness of the fact that a circuit, which is a piece of wire that runs from a circuit breaker to your outlet, is only rated to handle a certain amount of electrical load. And they just figure, well, if I plug things in and they're still working, it must be good. And in fact, the wires could be overloaded and even overheating, and you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, that just strikes me. I was just in a house the other night, one of our local professional athletes who's turned broadcaster, and he's in an older house up in Cardiff, and they turned on the toaster oven and the microwave at the same time and blew the circuit out. So
sounds like a red flag, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Well, that's what happens, and that's actually a good thing. If you trip a circuit breaker, it means it's doing its job. I mean, those breakers are meant to trip when you pull too much amperage through a piece of wire. It's when they don't trip. If you're turning everything on in a house built in 1955 and your breakers don't trip, you really do need to have it checked out because they should be. And sometimes old breakers get stuck in the on position, and people will say, well, I'm not having any problems. I can turn everything on and my breakers don't trip. And that's actually can be more of a warning sign than tripping breakers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How'd you learn so much about electricity?
You're smart. I have a technical background, actually, and I just picked it up. And my husband likes to say that I know more about electrical than some of the electricians that we interview sometimes. But you pick it up. When you're married to an electrician, that's all he talks about is wires and running circuits and the things he encounters, and gardeners running electrical work. And
I should have known you a couple of years ago before I sold my Del Mar house. That it was a 20 feet wide, 80 feet long, and 4,000 square feet, and it was an electrical nightmare.
We see that sometimes with the new construction, we have the most problems because with new construction, everything is very price sensitive. So who do you hire but the person who can do the work for the lowest cost? And what happens when you do things at the lowest cost? You have to cut corners. They cut it either on materials or they cut it on how the work is done.
So
Yeah, I always like to ask people, would you go up in the space shuttle built by the lowest bidder?
That's a great
Right?
question. I love
Really?
that question.
yeah, so I see you have a couple things that are new to, at least new to Point Loma Electric. Tell us a little what's coming.
Well, what's coming? We're starting to move more into the area of energy, saving energy and beautifying your house. We've gotten more and more into the lighting area. The first thing we always focus on with our customers is making sure that your house is safe. That's number one. If you're going to spend money, make sure it's safe. People do not like to spend money to make their house safe. It's not fun. It's not pretty.
It's not sexy,
You don't
yeah.
see it. They'll spend a fortune on a granite countertop, but really not hate to spend money on the wires behind the wall. So we have a lot of people looking into, making life more convenient, enhancing the beauty of their room with good lighting and energy-saving devices.
Great. Well, we're starting to run short on time, so why don't you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with Point Loma Electric?
Well, you can find us on the internet at www.pointlomaelectric.com, or you can call us at 619-224-0672. And if you just type Point Loma Electric into any search engine, you'll find us really easily. We'd love to help you.
Sounds easy enough. So, well, we appreciate you being with us, and we will look forward to bringing you out to some of these homes that need some help.
Thank you so much for having us.
Great. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are making a difference in our community. This is Financial News and Talk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after the break with more homegrown business Close Up, and we'll be talking to Ron Morabito from the V Group.